way, that's fine. Like I say, I always try to go into stuff with an open mind. But coming from an abusive background and working with abused people, I like to really look and see what I can find that's going to help people, and especially because a lot of kids are abused behind the word of the Bible. Parents will use the Bible to justify their actions of abuse, and it does a lot of damage to kids in the long run. A lot of them will turn from God because of it. I know I did for 38 years, and in the area that I minister in, it's if I post things about God, because me and God get along great today. We have a great relationship. But if I post things about God, especially on one of these abuse pages, it gets people are very, 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 very upset about it. They don't ridicule me, but they just, if God has anything to do with this, I want nothing to do with God. And it's a constant thing with God. It's God's fault. I can't believe that God would allow abuse to happen. And I understand it. I understand it, and I like their honesty. I appreciate it because, for 38 years, that's who I was. I was one that, if God's such a loving, caring God, then why do you allow this to happen? Why did he take my dad from me when I was 12 years old, the man that I looked up to? Why? And then not only did he take my dad from me, then why did he put this other man in my life to be my stepfather that was going to abuse me in every possible way you can imagine? So I question a lot about that. But, God's timing is perfect. And when I got in recovery 14 years ago, nobody told me I had to. No nudge from the judge. There was no legal consequences. I was just inside. I was not good, and I literally had a divine intervention. And that's when God showed me and told me, this is why what happened to you, because my calling on your life is greater than you can ever imagine. And this is part of it. It's talking about the hard things that people don't want to talk about. It's talking about the things that people have misconceptions about. One of my outreach coordinator on the foundation, it just happens to be my son-in-law. He called me the other day, and there was an actor that was on a podcast with a couple guys, and this actor used to be on it was one of the comedian shows, and anyways, he announced on this podcast that he had been sexually abused. And the two hosts just started laughing at him. And he goes, "What are you laughing about? It's true." And they just kept laughing. So he walked off the show. And I'm hoping, he reached out to his agent, and we're hoping to get him on our podcast, that I can have a good conversation with him, because people don't want to hear it. They don't think it happens. They think it only happens to women. And that's not true, and it's devastating. It's devastating as it is to women. It has a lot of, I want to say more social ramifications than it does women, but that's not really true. They're just different. It affects, when I'm finding out, and I found out over the last couple of years talking with a lot of women, that it affects them in the same way but differently. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but you'd have to know what I'm talking about on the two sides. But so women are afraid to talk about this just as much as men are, I'm finding out. In fact, I've had several women come up to me where I've been speaking and say, "I've never told anybody, Randy, but after hearing your story, I'm going to start talking about it." Now, this is women, not men. I've had men as well, but they have women coming up to me that have never said nothing. So this is a topic that people don't want to talk about, but we need to talk about it. We need to quit sweeping it underneath the rug. We really do. And it's like, I had one pastor tell me, "Randy, you got to quit taking people back into their past." And I said, "You don't seem to understand something. I'm not taking nobody back in their past. People are living in their past. So what I do, and my wife does, what we do is we go back in the past with them. And we walk them out of it with a whole other perspective." That's what people need. They need to be heard. But then once they're heard, they need to start doing some work. And that work could take a year or a lifetime. And most of it's going to take a lifetime because of some of the things that are so deeply ingrained in the fiber of our being. And so that's why some of our parenting skills aren't really honed, because we've never dealt with some issues that we need to deal with. And our parents taught us how to be parents. And you might be doing just a little bit better than your parents did to you, but it's still far cry from hitting the mark. I mean, this no disrespect to any of you out there. You need to understand that. Please understand that. So here's a couple more of the scriptures that I want to read to you. It actually condemns the abuse of children. So what do you prefer? Shall I come to you with a whip, or in love with a gentle spirit? 1 Corinthians 4:21. I don't know about you, but I want people to come to me with love and a gentle spirit. And even as an adult, if a person comes at me with, we'll just use a metaphor of a whip, I got no time for them. But if you want to talk about something and you want to treat me with respect and love, then I'll listen to you all day long. All day long. But don't come at me throwing false accusations or asking, hey Randy, can I ask you a question? And you throw an accusational question at me. Don't be making accusations. Doesn't work. No, don't do that with your children. Get the real story. Get the real story from them. But if you're believing everybody else but your child, why would they tell you the truth anyways? You got to really think about some of this stuff. It's real simple, but yet it's hard. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, this is so... Parents, I want you to hear this one. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fast around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. And that's Matthew 18:6. And one commentary I read about that is Jesus is saying this: you'd be better off dead than causing one of my little ones to fall to sin. My stepfather and mother, they caused me. As a child, we don't know the difference. We don't know we have a choice. But they caused me. They pushed me away from God and the church because of their actions, because of using the name of God and the scripture to justify their sinful behaviors. It's as simple as that, and I can't put it any other way. As adults, it's different. But still, even in church, I want you to hear this, because people walk in the church and they're still broken. They don't understand the concept that they're an adult and they got a choice, because they think they only have one choice, and that's to act like a victim. So if our behaviors as a Christian is causing somebody to fall away from God, and look, I agree, nobody can make us do anything. I'm not going to argue that point with you. That's the truth. But there are those out there that are so broken that if our actions cause them to turn from God, we're one of his little ones. We're one of his children. It applies the same way. In my eyes, in my view, I don't want to cause anyone to fall. When I work with people, my wife and I work with people, when they come in to celebrate recovery, when they walk into church, whenever they walk up to us, we treat them as Christ would treat people, with love, dignity, and respect. I get to know them. I make them feel comfortable. We meet them where they're at. That's what Christ would do. That was in Matthew 18:6. These guys go on to say, become an enlightened parent, a parent who is moved and inspired by the Word of God, that calls for grace, gentleness, forgiveness, and love in all that you do. What's so hard to understand for these kids is why you can display this kind of behavior, giving people grace, gentleness, forgiveness, and love to strangers. and other people, but yet you can't give it to your own children. That is mind-boggling to me, and that's exactly what I went through as a child. You give it to everybody else but your own family. Show me the Bible where it says give it to everybody else but your own family. You give it to everybody. Challenge yourself to create a Christ-like approach to parenting. Challenge yourself. It's hard because if you've been used to parenting a certain way, and now you're saying, well, I got to change the way I parent, I want to be more Christ-like. It's going to be difficult. That's when you need a really strong mentor that can walk you through the process and give you options on how to parent your child differently. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And you have to understand that. And we have to sit down with our children and have this conversation with them and say, look, I messed up. I didn't know any different, but I want to change. It's just going to take time. So please forgive me. Just give me the chance to change. Philippians 2:5. I love this. In part says, in your relationships with one another. In your relationships with your wife, with your pastor, with your co-workers? No, with one another. That means everybody. Have the mindset as Jesus Christ. Have that mindset of Jesus Christ. Again, I'm not saying our children don't need to be disciplined. They need to be learned. They need to be held accountable, which is built on discipline, not punishment. Punishment is after the fact. The only punishment a kid should have for throwing a rock through a window is he has to pay for it. That's his punishment. And in order to pay for it, his allowance is taken away, and he's got to mow yards so he can pay for it. And maybe he has to go on restriction for a week too. But you got to start that at a young age. Seek strategies and techniques that enable you to parent to the soul of your child. Remember, your child is a child of God. They're not adults. You got to meet them where they're at. Be Christ-minded. How did Jesus meet them? How would Jesus handle a child? Stop using the Bible as an excuse, please. Stop using the Bible as an excuse to spank, but instead use the Bible to create a higher vision of yourself as a parent. Become the parent you always wanted to have in your life. My CODA sponsor told me that. The best thing, that advice I'd ever got was from my CODA sponsor, right? As I was working through all these issues in my childhood, and he says, Randy, he goes, just become the parent you always wanted to be, you always wanted to have in your life. Be that father that you always wanted to have in your life. And what I remembered is my father, my real father, when he died when I was 12 and my father was 32, he died of cancer in 69. But I remember the father that he was. That father, my biological father, was a loving father. He was kind. He wasn't perfect by no means. He took us fishing. He took us to the beach. He did stuff with us. He loved us. I just held him to the highest regard. And I lost that because I was fathered by another man that was abusive. So when my sponsor told me that, my mentor told me that, it was hard because my children were adults. But I can remember driving down the road, and what I needed my father. And this is, I'm 63 years old right now. So all these years afterwards, I needed my father to tell me how proud he was of me and that he loved me. I was craving it. So what I would do is I'd pick up the phone when I was driving down the road, and I'd call my son or my daughter, and I'd say, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I love you, and I'm really proud of you. That's it. All right, that's all I wanted to say. And they would say, thanks, Dad. Love you too. And they'd hang up, and we'd go about our business. So there's things we can do. We want to make our children feel loved and important. But I understand how that can be hard sometimes, especially if you didn't receive it as a child growing up. So there's a study links spanking kids to aggression creates some language problems. And I'm just going to I've read this. It's been a while since I've read it, but I kept it for a reason. It says the effects of spanking, according to lead study author Michael J. McKenzie, are both wide-ranging and longer-lasting than some parents may assume. These effects may even get worse the more a child is spanked. He says we found there are impacts not just on the behavioral development that folks normally look at, but also on markers of cognitive development, like the verbal capacity of the child. McKenzie, an associate professor at the Columbia University School of Social Work in New York, told Health Day, these effects are long-lasting. They aren't just short-term problems that wash out over time. And the effects were stronger for those who were spanked more than twice a week. He further goes down a little bit further. He says there's just no evidence that spanking is good for kids. Gershoff, who wasn't involved in the study, told Reuters Health, spanking models aggression is a way of solving problems that you can hit people and get what you want. Okay, and he goes, but if you use so much of the if so much of the science is in agreement, why do approximately half of all parents continue to use corporal punishment as a form of corrective discipline? So even though they got findings that the spanking does no good, these are psychological findings. Right there's you can look it up, okay? And there's more out there than that on that. Why do people keep wanting to spank their children? So I hope you got something out of that today. Just, if nothing else, just something to ponder and think about. And again, just know that I'm saying I come at it with from a place of love and compassion. And so many people are broken out there, and you know, it's like when we work with them, it's like, well, I don't want to blame my parents for everything. No, you're right. You can't blame your parents, but the reality is that you have to look at your childhood. And if you're holding on to a resentment towards your parents about some of the things that were done to you as a child or not done to you as a child, they need to be talked about, because until you can talk about them, they're not going to go away. The goal is to get you to love your parents in a way that you might not ever have been able to love them, or never had loved them before. It's not to say that the relationship would be perfect ever, but remember, God just calls us to love everyone. So I just pray for that. Those of you that might have been abused as a child, that maybe this helped you out a little bit, gave you some information. And if you have parents that were the ones that seem to use the Bible against you whenever it comes to punishment, I would pray that you would seek God and forgiveness of your parents. And remember that forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with them or that they have to be back in your life. It just takes you out of the prison that you've been locked in for so many years. You hold the key to that prison. So just walk with God through this. Talk with God. Meditate on all this stuff. I'm a big fan of journaling. Journal your feelings. Get real. Get honest. The program of recovery says that we must become rigorously honest. Rigorously honest. And that rigorous honesty starts within ourselves. Because if we can't be honest within ourselves about our lives and about how we feel about certain things, then we're living a lie. And not only are we living a lie, we're lying to everybody in our life. You're lying to yourself, you're lying to your spouse, you're lying to everybody. It's a lie. You feel how you feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to talk about it. You're not going to burn in hell. It's not a sin. If you're thinking it, if you're feeling it, if God is everything or God is nothing, He knows it. So find a trusted mentor, a trusted coach, a therapist that you can talk to about this stuff, so that you don't have to keep carrying it around for the rest of your life, because it's just going to drag you down. I promise you, I guarantee it. It did for me, the people I work with. I mean, you hold the key to your own happiness. You hold the key to your own happiness and freedom. You just have to be honest with yourself. It's okay. God knows. And if God knows, you might as well, if he knows what you're thinking, you might as well talk about it. That's kind of my feeling about it. Well, I would like you, if you would, do a couple of different things. One, visit my foundation website, courageoushealers.org, courageoushealers.org. You can check that out and see what we're all about there. Also, as well, check out my life coaching page, changeyourlifestorynow.com, changeyourlifestorynow.com. These are the kind of things I coach people on, is everything I've been talking about, everything I talk about on the show every Friday is. And then some is all that I work with people on. And my wife and I do some good couples counseling as well. And then I do have a book on Amazon, Healing the Wounded Child Within. Healing the Wounded Child Within. It's a great book, Hope and Healing, #1 international bestseller, and #1 in 5 international, #1 in 5 mental health categories. I also have a devotional, a 30-day devotional to wholeness. It's a great devotional for couples to read together. It's got a devotional, a couple scriptures, and then 3 contemplative questions at the end of every devotion. So if you like, check those out. And I hope you all have a pleasant weekend. It's going to be a nice weekend again. Enjoy your family. Love them. Stay close to them. Make sure you tell your kids every day how much you love them and how proud you are of them. They need to hear it. Because you don't want them going to the street to get their affirmations like so many kids are doing. They need it from you, Mom and Dad. So be sure you do that. Know that God's walking with you. He's got you right in the palm of your hands right now. I know a lot of people I know Rich talked about anxiety and fear this morning, and a lot of people are walking in that anxiety and fear right now. And you know, we've got a God. Greater is He that is within us than he who is in the world. And we just gotta rest in that. We just gotta trust that God's got our back and everything's gonna be okay. Because God's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So I want you all to enjoy your weekend, even if it just means laying around the pool all weekend, or if you're going to go out of town, have fun out of town. I know my wife and I last weekend, we went to Laguna Beach on Saturday. We got down there at 9:30 and didn't leave until 6 o'clock that night. And I planted my butt on the beach all day long. That's where I'm from, that area, and I just love the beach. So enjoy life amongst all this that's going on. Amongst all this that's going on, right, the chaos and confusion, don't stop enjoying life. Don't stop enjoying life. Look at the positive. Look at the positive. And know that God is with you. Know that I am God. Know that I am. Know that be still and know that I am God. Everybody have a blessed weekend. I know God loves you. Have an amazing, amazing day the rest of the day. Remember that if nobody tells you they love you today, Captain Courageous does. But more importantly, our Father in heaven, God, does. Everybody have a super, super blessed day. Super blessed weekend. I love you all. Thanks for being a part of our show. This is This is Remnant Radio 100.1 FM. The radio of your life. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.